Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Cory Maines Show. Today, I'm going to be looking at one of those topics that I brought up during the update video that was posted however long ago. And that will be the 1998 college football season from one Barry Sanders, which is considered one of the greatest college football seasons ever. I'm going to be going over that and highlighting some of the stats and just how amazing of a season it was. This comes from an ESPN article, kind of, at least the inspiration for it. They had an article out since it's the 30-year anniversary of that season from Barry Sanders. He broke 34 NCAA records and took home the Heisman Trophy that season. It's an absolutely fantastic season. Let's dive into it a little bit more here, though. So first of all, Sanders was a junior at the Oklahoma State University. The stat line itself, we'll start with that, is absolutely huge by any measure for running backs especially. He rushed for 2,850 yards and 42 touchdowns. That's in 11 games. Now, this includes the bowl game performance against, I believe it's Wyoming. So that's included. That was not included back in 1998, or 1988, rather. That didn't start happening, and they didn't start counting bowl game performances in total season numbers until 2002. However, despite that, even if you take it away, like his actual 1998, I keep saying 1998, I'm sorry, 1988 season is still absolutely insane, and we'll get into a little bit more of why it's so insane a little bit later as well. But he still had 2,628 yards on the season and 37 rushing touchdowns. 39 total. He had 2 return touchdowns, 1 punting, 1 kickoff return, which he did that at Oklahoma State, especially earlier on in his collegiate career before he was really given a chance at the running back spot. But nevertheless, his 2,628 yards is still nearly 1,000 more than the second place guy that year, who was Darren Lewis out of Texas A&M. He almost had nearly 1,000 yards more than the guy in second. So that right there alone, holy shit, that's a huge number, right? And then those 37 rushing touchdowns was 11 more than Indiana's Anthony Thompson, who, by the way, finished, I think I have it in here somewhere. I know he finished like 6th or something in the Heisman voting that year. And by the way, I already mentioned, he played in 1 less game. He only played 11 games. The other guys played 12, those 2 guys. He played in 1 less game than these guys. So to be 1,000 yards ahead of the next best and also double-digit touchdowns higher is absolutely insane. And not to mention, he had 516 yards returning and the 2 touchdowns, as I already previously mentioned. Now, of those 34 NCAA records, Cory, you said it right, bud. You did it. Only 6 of them stand today. Those are the rushing yards, the rushing touchdowns, and the overall touchdowns. The overall touchdowns is actually tied. It's actually tied by Monte Ball from Wisconsin back in 2011. Those 3, I think, are the most surprising ones that are still intact, because you'd figure, and we'll get into it a little bit later, but you figure the way the offenses have evolved and how the game is played, someone would have beaten those by now, or at least come close or beaten them, you know. But the other 3 records, which is his 4 300-yard plus rushing games, 238.9 average yards per game, or just yards per game, and 234 total points scored, still stand, which is an incredible amount for anyone to try to climb, to average nearly 239 yards a game. Amazing. Just, you're going to hear me say amazing a lot. Today's all about amazing. Now, the only man who got pretty close, I guess you could say, to Barry Sanders this season was Melvin Gordon just a couple years ago, the current Chargers running back. In his junior season, which is really his 4th year in college, so I guess his redshirt, technically, at Wisconsin, who, coincidentally, the guy who's closest and actually is tied with Barry Sanders' total touchdowns of 39 is Monte Ball from Wisconsin. So that's kind of interesting. A couple of Wisconsin boys being the closest to him. But Gordon, he's the closest in yards. 2,587 yards, 2,587 yards, which is still far behind. Not too far, but now Gordon's numbers are with the bowl game because, as we mentioned, 2002 is when that started. This was like 2014, something like that. So even without his bowl game, Barry Sanders was still ahead of Melvin Gordon. But Gordon also had 29 touchdowns, which pales in comparison to Barry Sanders, essentially. What is that? Eight less than Barry Sanders. And again, Monte Ball is the closest to him, total with 33 rushing touchdowns, that is. And again, I have it written here that both of which of those numbers, the 2,587 yards and 29 touchdowns, are lower than Sanders, even without his bowl game. Because if you remember, 2850 with the bowl game, right? 2850 and 42 touchdowns with the bowl game. Not only that, but Gordon finished second in the Heisman that year to Marcus Mariota, who did have a great season that year. So, yeah, amazing. Now back to a little bit of Barry Sanders himself in that season, I guess. Now, Mike Gundy, who many will remember for the "come at me, I'm a man, I'm 40" speech. You know that? I don't know what the fuck I just did there, by the way. That was some weird ass shit. Like, try to do an accent, try to, like, whatever, man. You know what I did. You know what you did, Corey. It was fucking bad. You didn't give it your all. You suck. Most famous for that "I'm a man, I'm 40" blow up at the press conference in 2007. He was actually the quarterback of the Oklahoma State Cowboys in 1988 with Barry Sanders. Pretty insane. And it was obviously the coach. But he notes that Sanders could have actually done more that season. We already mentioned that he played only 11 games, which is one less than some of his contemporaries. But also, Gundy notes that the style of play, the way the game was played back in 88, is a lot slower than it is today. Teams are doing no huddle. They're speeding things up. Back in the day, they took their time. They huddled up every play. So Sanders didn't have as many opportunities, essentially. And not to mention that Oklahoma State was blowing out teams, so they didn't even play Barry Sanders late in games. There were some games he didn't even play in the fourth quarter. So he had a whole quarter off and still was able to put up insane numbers. So he plays one less game. Not only that, he plays less time than other guys. And he still has these unbeatable records. Effectively unbeatable, that is. Still, despite the fact that one less game, missing fourth quarters, he still had 344 rushing attempts that year, which was second in 1988 and still is a top 50 number today. So that remark may be a little bit, not false necessarily, but a little bit loaded almost in a way, I guess. Because he still was a workhorse, and his total carries that season is still ranks among the highest all time. And we're talking hundreds, thousands of running backs to play the game, and he still has one of the highest total carries in a season. And again, I mentioned this here. Even in these faster systems, guys still aren't getting more touches than Barry Sanders and aren't doing as much as Barry Sanders did in 1988. The only person to come close to matching him is still nearly 300 yards total and 15 touchdowns behind. That's pretty amazing. What do you guys think? All y'all watching. Y'all. Do you feel that Barry Sanders' 1988 season is the greatest in college football history? History, period. Every season. Or what about just for running backs? I don't think there's any question that it's the best among running backs, I would say. But if you think so, if you think otherwise, shoot a comment. You know, whatever. But college football history, that's another thing to look at. Is it the best in college football history? If you don't think so on either of the points, again, write in the comments. Tell me. Give me a name. Give me some numbers. Give me some stats. Give me something to kind of plead their case, make their case as to why whoever it may be, had a better college football season than Barry Sanders. But until next time, I've been Cory Maines. This has been the Cory Maines Show. Until next time, goodbye.